So to test out this little cozy stream, I'm going to be reading through some of my reviews of games that I've done from the beginning. This is for the gaming adventure that I'm on, going through my vast library of games. I am skipping games that everyone else sort of knows. I'm skipping large RPG games. Please excuse any weird noises because I have a bird on my head right now, and he does get very loud. It's Octavius. Anyway, so I skip games, mainstream games and stuff like that, first-person shooters and games that don't really have an end to them. So some RPGs, like I probably won't stream Baldur's Gate, even though I love the game and I play it a lot. I wouldn't stream or review games like Call of Duty or, games like that. Games like that everyone plays, everyone knows about. I try and aim more for indie games and little games that you get as part of a humble bundle and things like that nobody's ever heard of. I do try and stream those kinds of games, just to give them a little bit of press, I suppose you could call it, so that other people may enjoy them if they are enjoyable. That's your style. So today I am going to start reading through them. Obviously, my reviews are not very long, but I just thought I would try it. So let's switch over to our reading room. Nice and cozy in front of the fire. If only it was raining here, but I think it's probably going to be in the 80s again today, even though it's the middle of winter. But anyway, we can pretend. So let's pretend. Everyone get cozy, and let's see what happens. And as it says in my tags, there are birds in the background, and right now they are very happy, and they are chilling, so they are burbling to each other. So I hope it just adds to the atmosphere. So I am going to start. Thank you, Octavius. I'm going to start with 35mm. It's one of the first games I played in the gaming. It is the first game I played in the gaming adventure because I organized everything by alphabetical order, and obviously numbers come first. So it was first on the list. I did, well, as I said in the review, I'll just read my review. I might not embellish, but like add, things that I remember that I wanted to add, but I forgot to add to the review. So, all right, we begin with 35mm. I initially played this game back in 2018 and only got about 30 minutes into the game before something distracted me and I forgot about it. So cue the gaming adventure, and according to my GOG.com launcher, this was back when I was still using GOG because it actually showed everything. Plus I only had 640 something games. I was so young and naive. Anyway, so according to my GOG launcher, which shows all of my 640 plus games in alphabetical and numerical order, I'm sick, alright? I'm not quite up to 100% today. This was the first game on my list. The game is not particularly intuitive when it comes to using things or interacting with people, objects. I randomly found the inventory and how to switch between your knife and other weapons, and most importantly, your 35mm camera. That's the reason I actually got the game way back then. I actually bought this game. The gorgeous atmospheric landscapes and locations, and your handy camera that was number one in your inventory and first in your weapon wheel, so to speak. That's the reason I got this game. I really didn't know what to expect with this game. It's made by a very small developer. One person did pretty much everything except the music and the voices, and originally made all in Russian. The translations are not perfect, but they convey the meaning of the characters and some basic instructions in the beginning, with a few hints scattered throughout the game to attempt to guide you through the quite complex puzzles. There's also some action, and I have to admit the scenes in the Metro had my heart pumping. That could be possibly because I've played a lot of the Metro games. So the whole underground Metro thing, and train tracks and all the rest of it, and in the dark and being chased by horrible things, sort of triggered something. The sounds and visuals were quite suspenseful, and I was pretty terrified in some of the parts. The story is tragic, both on a global scale and on a character scale. The global tragedy is explained pretty much from the beginning, and it gets elaborated on quite well. You simply seen from each character's point of view, and with a few notes and journal entries and newspapers found in various places as you make your way through the game. The more personal stories are heartbreaking and very dark, and they come to fruition at the end of the game in the final scenes. Until then, you only get little tidbits of their story, not quite understanding the full extent of the story until right at the end. And that adds to the intensity. This is a once-off game. Once you know the story and the puzzles, there's not much replayability to the game. But I think this is okay because this is a game and a story that will stick with you for a while. It definitely stuck with me. I don't want to go down those tunnels again. Once is more than enough anyway. Though it was terrifying. My heart was pounding. So thank you, 35mm, for showing me a dark, sad, tragic tale in a very new way. And I'll say, do svidania, moj novia truk. Alright, and that is 35mm. And I will move on to the next one, which is, hold on a second. Sorry, this is just me testing around, so I'm sorry if it's a little disjointed and a bit silly. And I just wanted to do it in a recording so that I wasn't interrupted or got distracted, because I do get distracted very easily. Alright, my next game in the gaming adventure was Around the World in 80 Days. I played this game a few months ago. This was at the time. I wrote this in 2022, in June. So it was obviously around the same time, and I got the game slightly earlier than that. I played this game a few months ago when I got it, part of a humble bundle, if I remember correctly, as it's not something I would normally buy for myself. But I made it to the other side of Russia, and that's where I got stuck. I didn't have enough money to pay for the ship across the ocean to the Americas, and I didn't have the time left to go up and across to Alaska. I learned from my mistakes. This time I avoided Russia completely, until ending up in Vladivostok to take a ship from there. I went through the Middle East, India, China, and Japan instead. I crossed the USA in record time. Before I knew it, I was back in London, where I started with 3 days to spare. Yes, you heard that right. I made it around the world in 77 days. I also didn't run out of money, even after being hijacked by Jesse James himself. The possibilities of this game are endless, truly. The story is complex, and there are so many choices and paths and way to get where you need to go that it can be a little overwhelming sometimes. This time around, I took the speak to the little people route. I spoke to the deckhands and the pilots and the engineers and the cooks and the maids and the merchants and the sailors and the soldiers. I learned their stories, and Jean Passepartout, your character in the game, the trusted valet of Phileas Fogg, he became a well-traveled, kind, compassionate man with a surprising little tidbit and secret in New Orleans. Play it to find out for yourself. Although, with the character building and storylines of this game, you may actually arrive in New Orleans with a completely different palette of tricks and traits, which will get you a completely different story in the city. Isn't that incredible? Apparently, this game won many awards, and I can see why. Merci beaucoup, au revoir, and I'll be seeing you 80 days. Thanks for the dates and the salty crackers. Alright, next one. Next one was Hello 911. Alright, my next game in the Great Gaming Adventure was 911 Operator, which is produced and developed by Jutsu Games, a Polish crew, I believe. They also developed various other sim games in the same vein. This is not my usual fare, but it came with the humble bundle, I think, and as for my gaming adventure rules, it was next in line. I completed the game over 3 evenings, but I think the career mode can easily be completed in one sitting, perhaps 3 to 4 hours on the easy level, which is what I choose. There's a free play mode where I think you can pick a city and just play until you get overwhelmed, growing your teams and adding firepower and technical support. More helicopters, more motorbikes. Cue the Chips theme. I don't know if anyone is old enough to remember Chips, but yeah, I love Chips. Surprisingly, once I got the hang of it, I rather enjoyed the challenge of the game. In career mode, you start out in a small town in Hawaii with minimal crime and few incidents. Obviously, this is all on easy mode, as I prefer story over challenge. I'm a bit of a wuss like that. But there are 3 other modes of progressively crazy difficulty to choose from. Once you successfully complete a few duty shifts in this town, you are moved to a slightly larger town with more crime and more incidents. The loading screens were various helpful real-life hints and instructions for a multitude of medical or safety issues, ranging from hostage situations to poisoning, burns, and, as seen below, I took a screenshot of one for hypothermia, and it actually tells you how to help someone with hypothermia and the signs and symptoms. You have 3 services to control, with incoming dispatch reports that you have to send out to teams as needed. Once I played a few rounds, I realized your efficiency rating depended on your response to each incident. Did you send the SWAT team to a pickpocket report? Or did you send a single motorbike team to a gang shootout? Was the main fire truck sent for a cat in a tree? I was then able to prioritize and send the right unit for the appropriate incident level. This is not really explained in the game. There is a sort of tutorial. The Hawaii map basically is your tutorial, and it does help you. It does give you hints, but it kind of doesn't hold your hand. So it's pretty cool to work it out yourself. Scattered in between these incident dispatches are the bread and butter of the game, the 911 call. You get everything from men trying out their pickup lines. Yes, seriously. This woman must need an ambulance because she just fell from heaven, along with other gems like that. Anyway, from pickup lines to stolen cars, illegal parking, hostage situations, bank robberies, burning hotels, terrorists, and random political bombings. Each city was progressively larger and more complex, or in the case of your final city, Washington, not the largest, but filled with politicians and intrepid journalists. And yes, they call you, asking for information and comments. Sometimes people even attempt to bribe you not to send the police, or they inform you that they know important people and that they could end your career, and you are given various choices regarding your reactions to things like this. One caller wanted us to send someone to sort out her 14-year-old daughter who was throwing a tantrum and breaking things. And another, was a politician who had gotten himself into a little pickle and wanted an ambulance, but no cops. I sent the police anyway. I don't like politicians. The voice acting was pretty good, with 9 pages of voice actors, with about 4 to 6 actors listed on each page. They did a great job. They really did. Some of the calls were repeats, but generally, each call was unique in some way, even if it's just in the dialogue options you were offered, or the location and level of threat that was present. It was very well done. Overall, I would highly recommend this game for people who enjoy the simulation genre. And there are many more games like this one under the same umbrella, made by the same very small development crew. Stay on the line. Help is on the way. Oh, next one. I did not like this game. My title was 1954 Alcatraz, aka I guess he's not getting off that island. Alright. Try this one. Excuse me. I tried to finish this game, people. I really tried. The blurb about it looked intriguing, the casual 50s banter seemed amusing, and then I played the game. Firstly, it crashed after I reset the graphics and settings, maxed out all the way, of course, but I soldiered on and gave it the benefit of the doubt, fiddling with the settings until it seemed happy. I started a new game and threw myself into the story. You start out as a man in the can, the incarcerated Joe, in Alcatraz, after what, according to the intro cutscene, was a botched escape attempt. Apparently, he helped with a big heist with some bad characters, and everyone thinks he hid the money, so everyone is after him for that. In prison, you struggle to interact with your surroundings with a strangely clumsy 2-button interface using your mouse. There is a brief, and I mean brief, tutorial, and then you are left to your own devices. Right-click everything to view it, and you get a little blurb over what you're looking at, and then left-click to interact with the object and/or person. Excuse me. I clicked everything, both buttons, and heard the same one-liners about each item without any real help. Eventually, after lots of clicks and hearing the same thing over and over and over and over, I managed to work out how to make stuff and how to use that stuff on other objects. Perhaps I was not as focused as I could have been. Perhaps it was explained in the tutorial, the very, very brief tutorial, but it really was not very intuitive. Finally, I managed to find some objects I needed to continue because the story will not continue without certain checkpoints being met. More on that later. And I left my cell. While we stood in line outside our cells, I chatted with various other prisoners. The voice acting is great, with some real feeling and some real story thrown in, but the constant repetition of things until you choose the right sequence of events got very annoying very quickly. Once I got that right, we moved on to the chow hall, where we had some more strange and stilted conversations where there was no option to end the conversation until you'd asked all the questions and you'd chosen each dialogue option, even the ones that made people angry. Maybe it was bugged, I don't know, but more on that later. After these weird exchanges and promises of favors, a select few of us went to the visiting room and we met Joe's wife, Christine. She's a fast-talking, snarky, witty het cat, a poetry slinger with flippy hair and a beret. I can't say I clicked with Christine. Her dialogue options with Joe seemed very weak and pointless, filled with "miss you, baby" and weak store stuff like that. Not my cup of tea, but I persevered and we learned things, and again, after exhausting all options in the chat menu, even ones that were contradictory to what I had just asked her or what I was just told, we then began playing as Christine. On the dock, we meet the sleazy Mickey and his enormous thug. He wants his money and gives Christine a deadline to get it, and by deadline, I mean deadline. He plans to kill her if he can't get the money from Joe through Christine. There are lots of corny, cheesy, cliche mobster lines thrown around, and Christine's responses are a mix of sassy comebacks and whiny weakness of a damsel in distress. It confused me. Again, all options had to be exhausted until you moved on, even if they did not make any sense after what you just asked them and what they just told you. You had to click everything to move on. I investigated every clue, item, viewpoint, and heard all the blurbs, and then went home to our apartment. Again, lots of clicking, looking, trying to interact, and not really getting anywhere. I clicked on the things that were meant to give me answers and items, clues that Joe gave me in the visiting room, and again on a letter I found from him in our apartment, but nothing presented itself. I then went out to the fire escape to be met by a neighbor who is desperate to sleep with him. Sleep with you, should I say. And you can sleep with him. And apparently, according to the internet, because I did not do it, you can learn stuff about the heist that he did with Joe, but only if you sleep with him. I said no thanks and sent him home to his wife, and the secret marriage level went up 10 points or something. I didn't even know there was a secret marriage level, but it went up 10 points. But I was still left in the dark about important details for the rest of the game. What? And the roof... Okay, what did I say? Sorry. Sorry, apparently. I went out on the roof, and again, nothing presented itself despite clicking on everything with both buttons. I went back inside and then used the map to visit the 3 people I'm supposed to chat to. These were marked on the map. So I went to each location. On my way to one of the locations, I then bumped into Detective Grassi and was taken to the police station for interrogation. And again, all dialogue had to be completed, even though it was contradictory. I was then let go, but only after promising to meet up with Detective Grassi at his favorite restaurant. Yeah, that's not odd at all, right? Not odd at all. So I visited our landlady, who lives above her Chinese restaurant. This is where I learned, again, that if you do anything in the wrong order, it totally messes up your chances to pick up any further clues or advance any further in the story. It completely locks you out. I went to the kitchen first, because I was just exploring, because that's what I do. That's what I do in normal games. I went to the kitchen first and picked up a bowl of soup. I tried to read the drawer labels at the back of the kitchen, but apparently I can't read Chinese, or Christine can't read Chinese. Only the cooks know what you say. That's the blurb that it gave me every time. I then went upstairs to the landlady, who was lying in bed, under the weather. I clicked all around her room, checking out every single clue and object, got nothing helpful. I then spoke to Vivian, the landlady, and she begged me to go get her a bowl of soup. Oh, great, I thought. I already have one here in my purse. How I had it in my purse, I don't know, but I had it in my purse. I handed it over, and she said, thank you, but she wanted winter melon. I said, where the heck am I supposed to find that? I went back to... She also doesn't tell me. She just says she wants winter melon. So I went back down to the kitchen, clicked everything again. Nope, still can't read Chinese. Went back up to Vivian. She didn't want to talk to me anymore. Bugged, I thought. So you know what I did? I restarted the entire game. I did it all again. All the clicking and dialogue and searching and waffle. This time I went to Vivian first. She asked for soup. I went downstairs to get it. Gosh, I still can't read Chinese. I had no idea how to get this winter melon she kept asking for, so I just gave up on that one, hoping I'd find something later that would help. I then went to the church to talk to the priest. I had to break in to the church. And then I went to confession with the priest. I had to break into church to go to confession with the priest. Lots of silly dialogue options were here, and I asked everything, and again, got nothing. I checked all the clues and items and objects. I ran my mouse over every frickin' pixel on that page. Nothing. Nothing that helped move the story along. I had no choice. I then had to go to dinner with Detective Grassi. Despite complaining every 5 seconds about how hungry I was, I refused to eat everything. I refused to eat anything, not even the bread rolls on the table, because the detective would, and this is Christine's comment, reach out and hold my hand. And I didn't want that, apparently, despite going to dinner with him and being so lonely all the time. This is Christine. Christine complains about everything and then refuses to do anything that may help her. It irritated and confused me. I went back to the apartment, as apparently I could not move the story along anywhere. I was stuck. I did things in the wrong order, and now everything was broken and would not advance at all. I tried to switch over to Joe. But I had no idea how to do this. The tutorial mentioned it for 1 second, and I mean 1 second. It flashed up for 1 second, and then it was gone. And there was no real clue for me to show me how to switch over to it. Not even sure that they would have accomplished anything, as I hadn't advanced anything for Christine in the main story that might have helped Joe in the prison. I thought about doing it, starting it again. I really did. But at this point, I just gave up. I was frustrated and irritated, and finding this game was not what I was expecting, and it was nothing like the trailer. I was very disappointed. I uninstalled the game, and I moved on. I mean, you could go to the internet and find an entire walkthrough for this, but what is the point of that if you want to actually play the game and learn stuff for yourself? It was the most unintuitive, unhelpful, broken game I have ever played. Well, no, actually, not that I've ever played. I've played a few now in this gaming adventure. Next one being one of them. My next one was 2064 Read-Only Memories, aka I Am Old. Alright, I believe I am discovering the reasons behind why some of these indie games are not so popular. Not all, mind you, but some of them are just too modern and I guess woke, if I may use that word, for my old brain. Again, I really tried with this one, even gritted my teeth when I realized the entire game would be in these retro 16-bit graphics with accompanying MIDI music and sound effects. Although it didn't show that in the trailer looked very different. I've played other games like this, Cloudpunk for one, that I really enjoyed despite these things, but this game just pushed it to a point where you could barely see the characters, and even their close-ups were still not great. They definitely did not look like the trailer images you see. Those are full of full graphics and they look amazing. That's the reason why I got the game. Clearly I need to look further to see actual gameplay. My bad. I'm just not a retro game kind of girl. I lived through those low-grade graphics once. I don't need to do that again. Okay, but pushing through this, I started getting into the story. The game is actually very intuitive and offers lots of dialogue options for different attitudes and a nice simple interface. You can view, touch, interact with, talk to, or use an item from your backpack on almost everything you see in space. I like that a lot. You can even talk to your plant. It didn't answer, of course, but you got responses from the game like, this action will have consequences later, probably. And I love that kind of snarky, sarcastic humor. It gave you a different one every time. I love that kind of snarky humor. I really enjoy that side of the game. Your interactions with Turing can be very amusing as well. Turing is like a child, but with an adult's brain and understanding. They did a good job conveying that aspect of the little Rum. He is not two-dimensional in character, even though he is a 16-bit visually. That's a nerd joke right there. Anyway, I was really enjoying the story, especially the detective aspect of it, the locations and people popping up to talk to and interact with, until we got to the Starlight Club. The barman was lovely. We had a great conversation. The main lead, Tomcat, was also fascinating and warm and kind, and I loved our conversations. They were interesting. But before we got to her, we had to deal with Jess. Jess is a hybrid, and Jess is so feckin' rude and bigoted and treats you like shite because you don't get that she's a hybrid and apparently hates normal people, or genotypical as she calls them, because we're not awesome as awesome as hybrids. We don't need her at first, but later on when our plans fall through no fault of our own, because I followed every step that I was supposed to, we then have to go groveling to Jess to get some help. I tried, people. I really tried. But Jess is insufferable. And I tried all dialogue options. Went back, loaded the save for when I first encountered her, and tried all those dialogue options to see if there was one where we didn't offend her by breathing. But nope. She hates us and she won't help. Tomka suggests we be nice to her to help us. And I tried some dialogue options that I hadn't tried before or in a different order. Jess is so vain and so elitist and so bigoted, she refuses to help us. I do not know how you are supposed to approach that. I really don't. I tried everything. We apparently had to resort to all sorts of other options to prove ourselves to Jess just to get her to grudgingly give us a pathetic lead, and I just couldn't. It's a game. A game shouldn't make you feel like you had to dirty yourself to get somewhere in it. I wasn't uncomfortable that she was a hybrid or that everyone around me was whatever other life types and all the other things they are. I don't care. I do not care what people are, as I believe everyone can do their own thing, as long as their ideals don't get shoved down my throat, because I don't do that to other people. I was irritated that they made my character out to be less important or cool than anyone else because I wasn't augmented or a hybrid. I was just a plain old human. That's not cool. Maybe that's just me being old and grumpy, but I don't think so. I carried on playing for a bit, trying out the various options to continue, but I'd lost my interest in the game at that point. And I had closed it and I uninstalled it and moved on to the next game. Good luck touring. I hope your dream of electric sheep. Alright, so then we moved on to the next one. It was a while later, I think it was like a month later, I think, that I got onto this one. I was trying to get through them quickly because, well, now I have quite a few games. I think I've actually more than doubled the number of games that I had then. Yeah, so I was so, yeah. Thank you, Octavius. I appreciate that boy. Thank you. He just pooped on my keyboard. Wonderful. Let me sort that out. Yes, boy. Okay. My next game in the gaming adventure, in brackets I have, and now so very close to 700 games. Don't judge me. Blamed Steam Summer Sale and GOG and the ridiculous discounts. Yeah, that was, I don't even want to look, but I'm close to 1,400 games now, I think. Or 1,500 games? I don't know. Anyway, moving on. The next game in the gaming adventure is the tragic and beautiful A Plague Tale: Innocence. Some may say it should have been played in the P part of the adventure, but I'm going by GOG's list, as it shows all my games from various launches and sites in one place, and it said that it was next. So here we are, and here we go. My first impression of the game is that it is gorgeous. The colors and textures are detailed and beautiful, and you immediately feel like this is going to be a game where the story is made even better by the amazing scenery and the character design. The story, even if this had not been a beautiful game, sorry, let me try that again. Even if this had not been as beautiful as this game is, would still have kept me playing. Right, you start out in a beautiful moment. Father and daughter and beloved dog having a lovely evening stroll in a French forest in the 1300s. Idyllic, peaceful, filled with all beautiful autumn colors and bird songs. Here you meet Amicia de Rune, her noble father, and her gorgeous hunting dog Leon, which is obviously French for lion. Father and daughter discuss her mother and her little brother Hugo, who is apparently chronically ill with a mysterious disease. Amicia doesn't see her mother very often, as she is dedicated totally to looking after Hugo, who Amicia also doesn't see very often or know very well. Amicia is daddy's girl and is wanting to prove herself to her father and impress him. She does this in various ways, and you can tell her father dotes on her and clearly knows her better than he knows his son because of Hugo's illness and everything. It's a lovely scene, and you can thoroughly enjoy it. Then some things happen, I'm not going to spoil it, and Leon runs off after something. He is a hunting dog after all, and a well-trained one. So we walk through the woods discussing many things, including the current war and the Inquisition, your ill brother and absent mother, and your father tests your skills with your soon-to-be indispensable trusty sling. It's a lovely, gentle intro into the skills you will be using and advancing throughout the game. Amicia is innocent, and while a little sad and a touch jealous that she never gets to see her mother because she's always taking care of Hugo, she's also kind and sweet. And very much still a child. That's when things turn dark. Just, again, not going to spoil the story, but things happen, and it's downhill and pretty much running and hiding from there on out. You start out very strained in your relationship with your little brother Hugo, but through misery, heartbreak, and sheer terror that you go through together, and the understanding that develops, you end up being incredibly close and loyal to one another. It is quite touching at times. Hugo also starts out very innocent and gentle, but you are both changed tremendously by the things you see, have to do, and the people you discover along the journey. There are some incredible characters with their own deep stories, and these characters are not two-dimensional in the least. The story is linear. You don't get to choose where you go or when you go there, but even that does not detract from the game or the story. Everything gets there when you need to get there, and I like that about it. You don't have to like wander off and get lost in an open world or anything. Some places you revisit, and they are forever changed. You go back to places, and they are very, very different. Some of the people you lose along the way for various reasons, and each time it tears a little bit more at the heart. By the end of the story, after you accomplish your goals and help some of your companions accomplish theirs, you are emotionally exhausted, but tentatively triumphant. It is very bittersweet, and the ending is not quite what you expect. As mentioned, the story is very dark and quite gruesome in places, and there are rats. Lots and lots of rats. So if you have a phobia, I would not recommend the game. As for the story and the period it's set in, it's a dark, tragic time filled with violence and atrocity. Be warned, you will be changed as much as these children are. Even the NPCs and guards and soldiers and everyone else you come across are very interesting, and their dialogue makes sense in their position and location. I had many moments where my heart was pounding in my chest, and sometimes these were the sneaky moments where you're supposed to be sneaking around. There's a lot of sneaking, that's it. There are puzzles, and there are a lot of there's a lot of sneaking. So just know that when you go into it. The visuals are incredible, and the music is absolutely on par with it. It's a soundtrack you can get lost in. Each location has its own theme and song, and the action sneaking music is also superb. Each character also seems to have a little underlying theme to them, which is very cool. It's a game to get lost in for a good few hours. This is my second attempt at the game. I don't remember where I stopped playing the first time, but I remember exactly where I stopped, and when I managed to get past that point and move along in the story, I was pretty proud of myself. When I reached the end of the game, I was even prouder, because I am historically not someone who finishes games very well, so this gaming adventure has been very good about that, about forcing me to finish games, even if I didn't like them. I can heartily recommend this game, and I think by this point in 2024, I think pretty much everyone has played this game, and if they haven't, I can very much recommend it. I have hundreds of screenshots, and I will remember it very fondly. Then I just said farewell to Hugo, good luck to Amicia, and I thank them for the adventure. Yeah, it was such a beautiful game. And if you actually pay attention to all the details and all the things you see, it's so good. And your companions, they all have their own stories, and it was just such a good game. I really miss that game. But also, not a game that has too much replayability, because it's the story is so set. There's not too much you can do that changes it. In fact, there's nothing you can do, because there's no dialogue options or anything. You just speak to people. There's things you can do and different ways of approaching situations, but there's nothing really you can change about the story itself. Alright, I'm going to call it there. Just wanted to give it a test run, see how it went, see how it sounded. Once again, sorry for my voice or whatever, because I am a little sick, and sorry for the loud birds in the background. But that's just the way it goes. So I hope you enjoyed this.